Mathematics curriculum, operations with fractions. To add or subtract fractions, let's just have a look at this pizza concept. Here I have quite obviously eaten a half of a pizza plus a quarter of a pizza. Remember that fractions are only a part of an amount. I can't say I've eaten, okay, I can say I've eaten a half plus a quarter of a pizza, but I can't add those two things together because they're not the same. This is 1/2. It's much bigger than 1/4. The way to get to add fractions together is to represent them as out of the same amount by giving them the same denominator. Now here it's obvious. I can write a half as 2/4, and then I can easily see I've eaten 3/4 of a pizza. So if I add or subtract fractions, I must add or subtract equivalent fractions that have the same denominator. So we need the same denominator. And remember, I'm only adding or subtracting the number of those pieces that I selected. So I don't add those denominators, 2/4 plus 1/4. I'm counting quarters. I've got 3/4. I'm not counting eighths. I wouldn't add the denominators. It's not 3/8. So a fraction is counting how many of the bottom I've got. And so we add or subtract the numerators. So in this example, 3/5 plus 4/5, they're very helpfully counting fifths. So if I've got 3 lots of 5, 3 lots of 1/5 and 4 lots of 1/5, I've got 7 lots of 1/5. Now that's an improper fraction. The numerator is bigger. In 7 out of 7 lots of 1/5, I've got 5 lots of 1/5. That's 5/5. That's 1. And I've got 2/5 left over. In this example, 4/5 minus 1/2. The denominators are not the same. We'll have to make them the same before we can subtract them. So we look for a way that we can get 5 and 2 to be the same thing. We want the lowest common multiple of those two. The lowest number that they'll both go into is 10. So I'm going to make the denominator of each one 10. To do that, if you want to do your working separately, that's okay. Just come back to it afterwards. 4/5. To get 5 to be 10, I've got to multiply it by 2. And remember, I'm only multiplying by 1, really, so I've got to multiply by 2 over 2. That's 8 over 10. 1/2. To get 2 to be 10, I've got to multiply by 5. So I'm multiplying by 5 on the top and bottom. I've got 5/10. And of course, that's half. 5/10 is half. So now I rewrite my sum. 4/5 became 8/10. Take away 1/2 was 5/10. And I'm left with 3/10. I'd normally check if I can simplify. Can't simplify. That's my answer. Turning the page. Multiplying fractions. Let's just illustrate what happens when I multiply fractions. What if I said I ate half of half a pizza? Well, there's half a pizza. If I ate a half of that, then of course I ate a quarter of a pizza. And you know when we see of, it means times. So that tells me that a half times a half equals a quarter, which shows me that when I'm multiplying fractions, the rule is multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. Now, also in the rule, which we're not doing here, is cancel first. And in a later video, I'll show you what I mean. So here, we're multiplying 2/3 by 1/4. We're saying, I want 2/3 of 1/4. Multiply. Now, if you want, you can rewrite any times fraction, any multiplied fraction, as one fraction like this. And actually, any time it's a fraction with a times in it like that, you can rewrite it as two separate fractions, like we did in a video ago. So, if it helps you, write that step. Write it as one fraction, and then 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 4 is 12. Now see, we can simplify that because 2 goes into both the top and the bottom. So I divide by 2 on the top, leaving me 1, and I divide by 12 on the bottom, leaving me 6. That's 1/6. Now we just about have time. So here we can see that I could have cancelled early on. I'm allowed to rearrange a fractions, multiplications any way I want. So just have a look at how I could have written the fraction at this point. 2 times 1 on the top, and let's write the 4 on the bottom as 2 times 2. 2 times 2, and we've still got times 3. And see that? 2 over 2, I've got the same thing in my fraction there. I'm allowed to cancel, and that's 1 over 2 times 3 is 6. It's best to cancel first if you can, because then we're not multiplying with such large numbers. But if we don't cancel first, then we can get to the end and say, hey, I'm allowed to cancel. So at some stage, make sure you check if you can cancel. Now very quickly, dividing fractions. Let's just have a look at this illustration. If I had half of a pizza and I divided it between 4 people, then every person would get 1/8 of a pizza. Now, to divide a fraction, there's a shortcut that makes it easier for us. Remember that any whole number can be written as a fraction if I put it over 1, because it doesn't change anything. 4 divided by 1 is 4. We can see that there's a relationship here. That 8, it came from this 2 and this 4 somehow. 1/2 divided by 4 over 1. The shortcut that makes it easier for us to do is to leave my first fraction alone, make the operation that we're doing a multiplication, and turn the fraction upside down to its opposite, its reciprocal. Now here I've done 2 opposites then. The opposite of divide is times, and the opposite of 4 over 1 is 1 over 4. So it hasn't actually changed the meaning, but it's made it very easy to do. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 4 is 8, and you'll see we get the correct answer, but it's the easiest way to do it. So when we have to divide a fraction, change it to times, use the reciprocal of the second fraction, And then we follow the steps for multiplying. Oops, running out of space here. Remember that reciprocal is just flip it upside down. We can also illustrate that if we check with our calculator. If I did 6, let's do 2/3 divided by, let's do 6, sorry, being indecisive. 6 divided by 1/2. Remember that half is 0.5. Check that in your calculator, because 6 times 2/1, change to a times, flip the fraction, is 6 times 2, which is 12. And if you check 6 divided by 0.5, you'll find it's 12. So it works. Flip the second fraction upside down, change it to a times. We've gone over time, I'm sorry. My example here, 2/5, change it to a times, flip the second fraction, 2 times 3 is 6, 5 times 1 is 5. Oh, we've got an improper fraction again. 6 has one whole lot of 5 and 1/5 the remainder.